So this talk comes right before lunch in this panel. So let's talk about food for a hot minute. How many of you have noticed the change in fast food over your lifetime? Anyone? A few. From my vantage point, the sheer variety of options that are available feels like a really massive improvement, especially as a vegetarian. From Impossible Burgers to the fact that you can now buy a salad at McDonald's, I am definitely one of those people that if you had asked me, has fast food gotten healthier, I would have said, yeah, I think so. And it's not just the new, seemingly healthy options that we all see, it's the fact that I personally know people that have started companies to help with this problem. I have friends who are doing work inside the large food conglomerates that are pushing for change from the inside. So this feels real. And now some of you maybe have read the studies, so you know where I'm going with this. But I'm sorry to say, fast food is not healthier. In fact, according to nearly every study on the topic, despite the vast number of choices offered at fast food restaurants, some of which, yes, are healthier than others, the calories, the portion sizes, the sodium content overall have worsened over the course of our lifetimes. That is a fact. So if you already knew this, yay. If you didn't and you were like me and thinking that things were rosier than they are, you are not alone. We have a true north. There is a national consensus that we need to eat healthier. And those veggie burgers and those kale smoothies that we all love ultimately serve to do two things. They lulled us into complacency. They gave us this false sense that things were getting better and someone else was working on that problem because we were seeing and in some cases even tasting what seemed like progress. The second thing, and I would say the most important thing that they did to us, is they distracted us from our true north. Those veggie burgers and those delicious goddamn kale smoothies, they distracted us not just from the harm that was being done, but they kept us from noticing that the harm was actually increasing. We're here today at CGI not to talk about fast food, but to pause. Because as a retired tech founder, and now like a true masochist having moved into the world of finance, I know a little bit about people and entire industries that have good intentions but end up doing harm and then losing their true north. And I'm worried. I'm worried that we've lost our way in business and specifically in impact. I'm worried that just like my well-intentioned friends in the food industry, we have lost sight of our true north. We've been distracted by the statistics of the lack of people of color on boards, or the abysmal amount of VC invested in BIPOC founders, or even the wage gap. And in the process, we have forgotten that the whole point of our work is to shift power. And let me tell you, power has not shifted. Not for at least a century. Today, in 2022, despite the fact that people of color represent 70% of the world's population and the new majority in the United States, and despite the fact that women, last time I checked, still represent 50% of the world, people of color and white women combined control less than 2% of the world's money. I'm going to say that again. Less than 2%, sorry, of the world's capital, which means that we have a say on how less than 2% of the world's capital is spent, invested, loaned, used to feed, educate, and house humanity. Which is why ownership is what matters. Ownership is what we at Known Holdings and in partnership with CGI have convened some of the most brilliant leaders on the planet to discuss here today. From home ownership to ownership of your own businesses to ownership of the land that was stolen, ownership is where power is centered. So if you thought you were coming into this room for a session about diversity and inclusion or a conversation about representation, the door's that way. You can be removed from a board position. You can be fired as the CEO of a company. You can be impeached as president of a country. You know who can't be fired? An owner. Did you know my speech ahead of time? When the founder of Uber finally started facing the consequences of his misdeeds, he was removed from his company's board. And yet, to the frustration of many, he was still very influential in the management of his company. Why? Because you can't fire an owner and because his stake was worth billions. Elon Musk was offered a board seat at Twitter and he said no. Why? Because when you want power, you don't go where power lives temporarily. You don't go where people can fire you. You go where the power is, and that's as an owner. Love him or hate him, he tried. So the conversation you're about to listen to isn't about getting people of color on the boards of companies, nor about closing the racial wealth gap, or getting leaders of color in the C-suite of Fortune 500 companies, as important as that is, nor is it about the niche and very loud industry that is venture capital. We cannot be distracted by our industry's version of the kale smoothies and the veggie burgers. Don't get me wrong, I eat kale. I've been known to enjoy a veggie burger. I'm not saying anyone is wrong for fighting the battles of representation or pay equity. They matter. All of those battles matter. But we cannot get so distracted by the secondary and tertiary outcomes, the shiny objects that look like progress, and forget about our true north. And let me be clear, representation is not it. A seat at the table, a position on the board, the C-suite title, that's not it. If the progress we are fighting for only puts people of color into positions where we can be fired, dismissed, disqualified, or impeached, we are lost. Ownership has to be our true north. I don't want people of color to sit on that hospital's board. I want people of color to own the hospital. I don't want people of color to be on the C-suite of that company. I want people of color to own the company. I don't want people of color, thank you, on the Housing Commission trying to influence what real estate owners do with their assets. I want people of color to own the land, to own the building, or better yet, why not both? Please, if you take anything away from this session, let it be this. If you are here with a desire to make an impact, none of the battles you are fighting matter as long as people of color, 70% of the planet, do not own and control the machinery of the economy. We cannot afford to be distracted by the trappings of power. We cannot afford to be lulled into complacency by titles and positions that can be taken away from us at any moment. Ownership is power. By all means, celebrate the small wins. Have a veggie burger with me after the session. But don't let it distract us from the fact that unless we get busy shifting ownership, we are leaving our children with a society where the majority of the world have zero control over 98% of the machine that runs everything. I cannot imagine a more qualified group of luminaries to lead the way than the panel that you're about to see. I'm biased because I curated it. Nor can I imagine a better instigator for that conversation than my friend and the smartest move MSNBC ever made, Alicia Menendez. Please enjoy this panel and remember that there will be an opportunity for Q&A afterwards.
Please welcome your moderator, Alicia Menendez, and panelists Tashonda Brown-Duckett, Margaret Anadou, Janice Bowdler, Patty Arviello, and James A. Castleberry, Jr.
Woo! Natalie, burn it down. If you've never seen Natalie speak, it's like that every time. And I think that you set the stage so beautifully, so thank you for that. And